Hi guys, my name is Dr. Philip Alexander, and this is my first video podcast called The World Revolution. And the World Revolution is all about raising the consciousness on the planet. And I'm using this as an opportunity to connect with people that want to do that, understanding their life purpose on a soul level, and really who want to make an impact, game-changing impact on the planet. So I'm here with Cliona O'Hanlon, who is a Master of Transformation and Integrative Specialist. I've been really lucky to be friends with Cliona. I met her through other game changers as well. And yeah, she's so nice to join me on this. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Philip. I'm delighted to be here with you in this moment, creating your very first podcast.
Yeah. So, what is your life purpose?
What is my life purpose? To grow, expand, evolve, and in doing so, be the change that I believe is needed for the expansion of human consciousness, and also to help teach, guide, coach, and mentor others in my process in doing so. So I suppose really like my purpose is to be the excitement and the passion, i.e. to resonate with the core of our being, and by doing this and through doing this, be the inspiration of change and the embodiment of that higher elevation of consciousness for others.
Wow.
In the moment.
Well, how did you come to this understanding of life? Because I know that we've spoken before about you've been through a lot in your life, things when you're growing up, in your teenage years into adulthood.
Yeah.
Would you be happy to share a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I suppose my life, for me, like looking back, I'm a very I would have always been very aware from a very young age that I would have had a heightened sense of ability to feel energy. I would have been always labelled as too sensitive, which I suppose because of that label I would have perceived in a kind of a negative light growing up, where now I know that that's one of my superpowers. But I always would have believed that being sensitive meant that I was impacted by a lot. And I suppose because of that belief, a lot of things that happened in my life, I suppose chose or allowed them to impact me quite negatively. So I suppose a lot of my experiences in life, which obviously I chose on a soul level to evolve, grow, and expand. My expansion very much derived from suffering in my life, or the situations in my life that occurred that created suffering were my greatest source of growth and inspiration in hindsight, looking back. So like I would have grown up in a fairly typical Irish household, nothing too adverse kind of happening. And I fell pregnant quite young. I was 18, and this was probably my first experience of the rawness and the harshness of the human experiences. I lost my baby at 28 weeks, and that would have been the first, I suppose, real experience in my life looking back, where there was quite a lot of hardship and suffering, but yet tremendous amount of growth and learning and expansion and consciousness there at the same time, quite paradoxically. It definitely began my curiosity once I came out of the whole, I suppose, anger and pain and suffering phase of what is life kind of all about, and like what are we here to do, and what is the meaning and purpose of life. And I suppose from 18 onwards, really, that really kind of spurred on my awakening, for want of a better word, and just to become a little bit more curious about why is it that we are here. So yeah, that was the beginning of it.
Why are we here?
Huh?
Why are we here?
Why are we here? Why are we here? I believe to experience the consciousness that is being the human embodiment. Why are we here? Oh my God, Philip, I don't know if anyone's actually even ever asked me that before. Leave that with me there for a second. I believe to return to our core state of being and to embody heaven on earth, to master consciousness, and to enjoy and get the best out of this life experience that we do have, and to harness all of the energies and the superpowers that are readily available to us at all times, to unlearn all the conditioning and the beliefs and behaviors that we learned through our lifetimes, and hopefully to spur on a new human existence for future generations.
Okay.
How's that sound?
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do you think we're here?
Why do I think we're here? Well, I think that well, we've all done this before in some way, maybe in another lifetime, and we're returning as those souls to be way showers on the planet, but not in a way that like, oh, we're way showers, like, but it's just more like we've sort of been here throughout the eternity of time, and through our experiences through lifetimes, we came here in this lifetime um, to bring all of that wisdom and knowledge of how great life can be, and create a shift on the planet. And I feel like this lifetime there's something happening where something that may not have has ever happened before on the planet, where the whole world may be potentially enlightening, whereas in other lifetimes or in other eons of existence, where there were stories of beings that walked the planet and they enlightened, they were only documented as a few. There must have been many, but I feel like now there have been prophecies of that one day the whole planet will enlighten. I feel like this might be something like that. Yeah. So I feel like, I feel like we're coming back here to do that, to lay down the path for others to also come to that realization.
Yeah. And maybe break kind of karmic patterns to create new patterns for future generations.
Karmic patterns, yes. Yeah, because I guess even though we are all the same and we come from the same place, each of us are unique in our expression of everything, and we all have our own story to tell, and with that comes karma. It's sort of like it's sort of like a story of all of the good and the bad that we did. And it's just about balancing all of those things. And I'm sure that I think for me, karma is the bad karma is all the suffering that you go through, and being able to embrace it or make peace with it and move through it with grace.
Absolutely. And that's it. Like it's the ability to feel into it and move through it. Isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
It's a work in progress.
And you know what? Isn't it like, it's like just fully resonating and accepting the fact that it is an ever expanding, ever evolving, ever developing journey, and you never know it all. And there's always more to learn, and just being comfortable in that place of resonance, really, all accepting unconditional love for that place.
Okay, so like to go back to your life journey, and
Yeah.
you've written in your posts on social media about turning points in your life where you began to live more in your purpose. And yeah, you refer to a period in your life after the birth of your child, and you're in a bit of a rough spot. Could you share a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, after the death of my first baby, Harvey, I suppose I didn't probably really fully accept and resonate with what happened, and quite in a self-sabotaging way dealt with the suffering quite negatively, and just suppressed it all, and that came out in very debilitating and self-defeating ways, kind of aggressive or negative behavioral patterns, overconsumption of alcohol, taking drugs, all just to kind of, I suppose, eliminate the pain temporarily, or to get rid of. So kind of that went on for a few years, until I found kind of my husband, and I became pregnant after a few attempts, and that began to, I remember people saying to me before about, some women really embrace being pregnant, and I remember like thinking, would I be one of these women that would really enjoy it, or would be one of these women who found it really challenging? And for me, I was the epitome of a woman glowing when I was pregnant. And when I looked into this, it was, from a spiritual perspective, I had never felt so loving, so accepting of things, just overflowing with love. And it was having two human hearts residing within the one body, and that was really profound for me. So with that, I expected and anticipated that, having my daughter, I knew I was having a little girl, Sienna, my biggest teacher in life. I expected that because I was enjoying the pregnancy so much, and I felt so at one with who I was, and I was really, for the first time, I suppose really since the first time I lost my baby, really felt, this is who I am, this is what I'm born to do, this is going to be fantastic. And what followed from afterwards, my expectations of what was supposed to be and what my reality of what was were very misaligned. And I went through about, I'd say, a year after I had Sienna, where my emotional state was all over the place. I was extremely judgmental of myself. I had undiagnosed postnatal depression, which, when I look at it, really, I think it was just probably a lack of minding myself, looking after myself. I had so much pressure around keeping this baby alive, which I didn't even realize was within me until I had her. And all of the emotions and grief, which I had suppressed for so many years, came flooding up and back to me. And it was, an impending sense of doom. Would she be okay? I remember one time, like my husband saying to me, she must have been about maybe six weeks, and she was in her little carry tot and she was crying. And he said, "Oh, can I pick her up?" And I was like, "Oh my God, are like things this bad that her dad is asking me, can he pick his own daughter up?" But like that just goes to highlight how kind of, I suppose, obsessed with me minding her I was. So yeah, like that kind of went on for a year. I couldn't accept the fact then that that's how my reality was, because I had such a great pregnancy and I had a baby and she was here and she was alive and she was healthy, and how was I not feeling the way I was when I was pregnant? And then my grandmother died when shortly after Sienna's first birthday, and my grandmother was one of my, and still is, soul guides on earth. And she deteriorated a lot in her last, the 18 months of her being alive. And all along when I had been pregnant with Sienna, and she was the first person outside my husband that I told I was pregnant. And she said, "About time for you." But, I had a lot of guilt around the final year of her being alive, because she deteriorated so rapidly, and I just wasn't capable of giving her the same time and attention that I had done pre Sienna. So yeah, kind of after she died, I went into a very dark place, just a lot of, suppose, self-hate, self-judgment, self-criticism, just a massive cycle of victimhood. And I kind of recognized, I suppose, a similar thought pattern and process as I had done when my baby Harvey had passed away. And I had attempted suicide shortly after he died. I took an overdose, quite gratefully, unsuccessfully. But I kind of recognized a similar thought process and pattern. So I had decided, I have a husband, I have a child, I need to start taking responsibility for how I'm showing up in this place. And I went to my local GP, my general practitioner doctor, and the solution that I was kind of met with was, "Here, this is a 6-week prescription of antidepressants, come back for a repeat prescription in 6 weeks." And that, like at one of the lower points in my life, that just didn't really sit very well with me. I had tried antidepressants before. They weren't something that personally for me resonated or worked. I felt they impacted my energy levels quite a lot, and it just wasn't something that I wanted to go down that route again. So I embarked on a journey with a charity called Pieta House. I'm sure they're an international charity, but basically, like, the service they provide is they're a suicide crisis prevention center. And that was the first time that, I suppose, I admitted I needed help and support, and B, I was willing to look for that kind of outside of my marriage. And that was probably a bit of a turning point for me, just accepting that, that I'm not okay where I am, and that it's okay that I'm not okay, and that actually it's okay also to ask for support and help. And going into a space like that where it's a very non-judgmental, unbiased, supportive and loving space really allowed me the opportunity to do a lot of self-reflection and see where I suppose see the choices that I was making that inevitably had led me to be where I was at that point. So yeah, that was, I suppose, a major turning point for me, and it was definitely the beginning of me taking progressive responsibility for myself over my life. So that was 2.5 years ago, 2 years and 9 months. Um, and shortly after that, I went on my first yoga and meditation retreat to the south of Spain, up in the Andalusian mountains. A beautiful, beautiful place and energy. And it was probably the first time in 32 years that I had ever given myself time to myself to really check in and see how is Cliona doing. Not Cliona, the mom, the wife, the sister, the daughter, the business person, just me. And that was definitely like, it was another reconnection moment to I suppose, my higher self, the true essence of who I am. And I remember sitting down up on the mountain, and I spent a lot of that week crying, and obviously doing a lot of healing work, and saying, like, higher source, energy, God, whoever, support me and show me the way, and I endeavor to do your work here, and I endeavor to show people the way back into the light. And I suppose that has been my journey for the last 2 years and 9 months. I ended up selling a business that I was operating for 5 years, and embarking on a different career and committing to being the embodiment of the change, and being the light, really, I suppose.
So, yeah, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
What for you to go through, could say it was borderline suicide,
Mm-hmm.
and for you to go from there to who you are now,
Mm-hmm.
what did you do to make the transformation?
Um, what did I do? Well, I can tell you what I stopped initially, which was probably where I started, was stopped the judgment around everything I was doing. I stopped criticizing myself. I started to become more compassionate, become more loving, especially towards myself. Um, to start accepting parts of me that I wasn't willing to accept before. Um, I one of my passions now is wellness. So I really started to explore, what did wellness mean to me, and how did that look to me in my life. And when I started to explore that, it meant, creating space in my day for me, myself, to just be with me. So whether that was in a meditative capacity, or in a movement capacity like yoga, or looking at things that I enjoyed doing, like spending time with friends or family, or adding humor into my life, lightness. I mean, when I think, like, especially for me, I would have had a tendency to suffer with a more depressive mood, so lower energy. So bringing lightness into my life in the form of being around more kind of humorous or light energy people, more like-minded people, it definitely it definitely spurred on a passion for self-inquiry and self-discovery, learning more about my higher self, and how to connect more in with that state of being. My food and nutrition and water intake has been a huge part of that. I love cooking. I love cooking for my family or my friends. What else? I'm trying to think. What else do I love? yeah, looking at things like, utilizing things that keep me grounded on my energy levels well. So spending time out in nature would be quite big. I would even notice myself if I go a few days without being out in a natural environment, I can start to feel out of my energy. So like for me, it's been very much, we live in a world where it's all, go, 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 do, time, whereas that actually just didn't really work for me anymore. Like, I remember one of my yoga teachers saying to me, we're human beings, we're not human doings. And like, where is the space you're creating for yourself to just be in any given day? And that really resonated with me. And like like I came from a business background. I owned a business for 10 years, and would have always come from the kind of concept of like time management. Whereas in fact, for me, I was more productive when my energy management was better. So wellness for me became very much about sustaining my energy levels. Um, and that kind of spills out to every area of my life now, my mental, like how I'm, like what's going on mentally with me, energy wise, emotionally, physically and spiritually, and just keeping, and these things change, Philip. Like, I mean, what suits me maybe kind of, during the summer to keep my energy levels well might be different to what keeps them well in the winter. um Again, like yourself, it's very much, I'd be very intuitive feeling wise.
Uh, Tell us a bit about your daughter, because yeah, you've mentioned to me before, like you're quite you're sort of like a medium or a psychic in a way, right? Am I correct in saying that?
I would quite clairsentient, so I get like very strong feelings about things, or like if you kind of, I almost like I can feel things are going to happen before they're going to happen. My sister would be very similar in that respect as well. Yes.
Right, what do you mean by that?
So like, okay, how can I explain this now? Um, so say for instance, if someone was telling me about a circumstance that they're concerned about an outcome of it potentially happening, I very much can feel into the energy of what they're speaking about, and would kind of just know whether or not that will resolve in a good or in a good or bad way. I don't decipher whether one is good or bad, but um, in like for myself, I suppose it's kind of like it's a good resonance really with your intuition center. I even from a very young age, I would have always made decisions very much based on my gut, even if my logical side of me and other people were telling me otherwise all around me. And if I ever went against it, or that kind of like sense of this is the right way, it was always like, right. Am I being clear enough?
Sure, I felt the same way, like when I basically left my occupation, uh, it didn't make sense to anyone, and
Yeah,
but I don't know, there was something inside of me that uh, I just had to listen to it. If I didn't, it would have, like, I don't know, it would have just burnt me up inside. Like, I needed to follow it, and
totally.
yeah. So is that sort
And
of that's sort of like listening to your heart in a way, or
yeah, totally. Yeah, your gut, your heart, your center, your center of intuition and knowing, and sometimes that, because it's so intangible, and it doesn't always make logical sense, where a lot of people do operate out of, because I suppose definitely in Western culture we're not encouraged to tap into or tune into that center of power and of wisdom. Um, enough. I know it is beginning and there's change definitely, like definitely occurring. Um, but a lot of decisions can be made out of the logical brain, and you know, I just believe that there is a higher force at work there energetically that always knows, you know, what's better, what's the best for your higher good. And I suppose, yeah, I suppose like from a very young age, due to the sensitivity and stuff like that, because maybe that wasn't really understood, it was perceived maybe in a negative light. Whereas now looking back, I actually know that was a gift that I was lucky to be able to tap into a lot of my life. Even though it was quite confusing a lot of the time because I didn't quite understand why I would have such strong feelings or emotions. Um, and I probably always felt a little bit different. But I'm perfectly okay with that now. I embrace it.
Uh, can you contact, like, for example, your grandma who passed away? Would you be able to, like, are you in contact with her? Do you get dreams, or do you get visions, things like that?
Yeah. Not, I don't get dream. Occasionally, like she could be there in a dream, but not regularly. And I don't ever see her, no, but I definitely feel her presence. And you know, like when one of my friends who is a medium, anytime I speak to her, my grandmother always comes through, and she's always given me very logical messages and advice that I totally know is her, especially around my path, around public speaking engagements, and around what I should wear for them as well, which would have been very her. Um, so yeah, like I mean, I definitely feel her presence quite a lot. Um, and I suppose I do believe that she is omnipresent with me, supporting me at all times also. So I, I don't know if I ever have a need to have to connect with her, because I feel the resonance of her there always.
Hmm. And I think you mentioned that your daughter is sort of like a, well, maybe I said this. Your daughter is like a guide, like perhaps was your spirit guide in some way, or your little angel
Oh,
that came.
totally,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, Sienna, my little angel. And yeah, I think, and I think like I know souls pick one another, and I suppose kids in essence are the embodiment of exactly, they come in perfect, don't they? They come in with nothing but love and awe and excitement, and she's just been a real eye opener for me of to be in the moment and embody excitement and full resonance and non-judgment and acceptance of what is, and the total sense of self. Now I suppose she's getting a bit older now, so that the ego is starting to come into play a little bit, like, but definitely like in her formative kind of year or two here. um and especially like when I wasn't in such a great place, Philip, like, and I know kids are very connected energetically and they feel an awful lot, but like just the unconditional love that she had for me, even if I wasn't feeling good, she just was just a bundle of loving energy. I'm very grateful to have her. I'm very lucky to have her. There's not a day goes by that I don't appreciate that. I was gifted with the joy of being her mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
With its challenges and all that it comes. I'm not going to mask it and say it's like sunshine and roses every day. It definitely does have its challenges at times, but I'm very grateful to have her in my life.
Well, thought I'd ask you about your work, and yeah, what what do how do you help people, and do you So I know you work as a life coach or a master of transformation. Do
Mhm.
you run events and things like that, workshops? Do speaking
Yeah.
engagements? What? Yeah.
Yeah, like it's all kind of started to kick off for me this year. I sold a business at the start of this year. No, it wasn't. It was kind of midway through the year. So my whole practice kind of really kicked off this summer. So it's been a beautiful flow of synchronicities. I've been doing a lot of one-on-one coaching, which I'm really enjoying at the moment. And like I suppose how I help people is I suppose I help establish reconnections with them in their higher self, and just I suppose highlight how well they're actually doing in life, and to show them the loving energy that's abundantly available to them at all times in each moment, and just re to reinstill that inner knowing and that inner being, because we all have it and we all know it's there. It's just sometimes we get a little bit lost along the way, and that's okay, and we just need a little bit of guidance and support and coaching back in the right direction. um
What's the higher self like?
uh,
Because that, yeah, like that term gets thrown around with a lot of people
mm,
in this industry.
yeah, like I suppose I believe it is source energy, love, God, Buddha, whatever it is that I think it, like there are so many different terms for it. It's just that's what resonates for me personally, and that's what I connect with. Um, it could be the embodiment of the frequency of love. Um, is that making sense?
Yeah. Um, yeah.
Like I think a lot of people from a lot of different industries and a lot of different backgrounds all come from the same resonance and the same energy. It's just articulated and taught through different mediums and different sources and different messages and different stories to resonate with all the multifaceted different people that are within the world. Um, so yeah, the higher self is what resonates and connects with me personally.
Uh, this is what I sort of watched other interviews what people do, and they tend to have like a round of questions, which is yeah, it's kind of fun.
Go.
Yeah, so it's quite random. Um, what modality of spirituality resonates with you most, that you connect with? Like, is it more of a Western philosophy, Eastern, or is it more of a psychological understanding to?
Hmm. Um, like I suppose my my intro into the whole spiritual realm would have been very much grounded in yogic kind of philosophy. So um Buddhism, Hindu, that kind of way. Like I love my first, I suppose, spiritual guru was Deepak Chopra. Like I love his work. Um, then like I quite like the energy of like Abraham Hicks and that kind of philosophy and that kind of thought realm as well. Like I love Brandon's work. I love your work. They're all different. You know, for me, for me now, it's very much of it's an energy resonance as opposed to a specific philosophy. I feel I'm quite open to a lot because I understand it's all the one anyway. But definitely initially it would have been more grounded in more Hindu and Buddhism philosophies, definitely. But I'm quite open to everything now. Sometimes sometimes the psychological side of things, while I have a great appreciation and a respect for them, for me it's a little bit deeper. Does that answer your question?
Does. Uh, curious, like when you were growing up, were your family religious at all, or because
Um,
Ireland?
like I was raised as a Catholic. Um, I was raised as a Catholic. Were my family religious? My grandmother was. She went to mass every Sunday. Were my parents not overly. I mean, it was never really forced upon us. I did make my communion and my confirmation, but I think, I feel that was probably more of a, that's what was done in school and that was kind of what was expected and that's what was the norm. It was never forced upon us.
Mm.
So we never had to attend mass or lectures or anything like that. And you know, while I always kind of respected my grandmother's, like, I think for my grandmother, it was very much that was her time to be at one, and that was like her prayers were her meditations, and the rosaries were her time to just be. And I understand her from that perspective. But she grew up in a very different generation to me. Like Catholicism in Ireland now is very different to what it would have been back then anyway.
Right.
Um,
What do you? How
and
do you mean? How is it?
sorry.
How is it different now? Like, is it more progressive?
Like I suppose there's been a lot of controversy within the Catholic Church, brought to light and highlighted in the past kind of decade or so. So I think there's been a lot of distrust and faith lost in the establishment itself. So I think people kind of really revolted against Catholicism and the Catholic Church and have kind of turned their backs on it and are kind of looking at broader perspectives of spirituality as opposed to just one conduit or one way of looking at it. Like for me myself, and this is something, especially since I've kind of got a little deeper into kind of spirituality, I have um, Catholicism for me was never something that really truly resonated from an energetic sense. I was always interested in the stories and I get the concept behind Christianity, but Catholicism in itself, I don't know. I just think personally, if anyone is kind of being very one dimensional in how they're looking at anything, there's always more than one perspective of any given reality. So, um, yeah, like I have gone back into mass or to church on different occasions, being quite open-minded about it, and allowing the energy or the messages resonate with me. And it's just not something that personally sits with me. And that's okay.
You know, sometimes we get so my background being Sri Lankan, most Sri Lankans, well, there's a few ethnicities there, but from my ethnicity,
Yeah.
most of those Sri Lankans, they follow Hinduism.
Mm.
My family, particularly, for some reason, we were Catholics, and they are just like, what's the word? Um, can't think of it, but it's yeah, just
Devout.
yeah, that's the word, devout. Devout Catholics have to go to mass every either Sunday or Saturday. Um, but in Australia, like there have been some, uh, actually many Irish priests that come here,
Yeah.
and and I've found that Irish priests are very strict or disciplined.
Mm. Mm.
Very, I mean, I don't want to sound judgmental. It's more of an observation, but they it's almost like they don't budge on their philosophy of thought. Uh,
Mm.
yeah,
Mm.
I thought that's interesting. There's yeah, because
Yeah, which is why, like, I suppose, I mean, there is being disciplined and like there is being kind of hardcore. And I mean, this is life. There has to be room for a little bit of flexibility and fun in there as well, sometimes to lighten some of the density of rigidity of discipline. Um, and I suppose that's kind of really where the downfall came, is, there was a huge amount of um is it the word indoctrination, or what's the word I'm looking for? you know, oh, I'm stuck for it. Preaching, I suppose, preaching that this is the way, and then, you know, there's so much scandal and controversy came to light, which is very hypocritical of the establishment. And yeah, you know, like I have went to an anniversary mass, and this isn't like, I mean, this, I wouldn't paint everyone with the same brush or tarnish anyone with the same brush. Um, and I suppose anything that is governed by man, that has the potential to be tainted, as we all have free will and choice. But like, I have been to a few services for maybe a wedding or a baptism and stuff, and I've seen a newer influx of people coming into the church, priests. And I know they're talking about the potential of maybe females becoming priests at some point as well. Um, but they definitely, like, from what I remember long ago to the few engagements I've had recently, there's definitely been a different bit of a shift in emphasis on the teachings and the speaking, because inevitably, I mean, it will die out otherwise if they don't become a little bit more flexible to who they're speaking to, you know. It's definitely a different Ireland now, to who we were 40, 50 years ago. So um yeah, hopefully, like, I mean, I think there is a place for everyone, and hopefully they adapt to suit the mass.
Okay, so this is an interesting one. What scares you?
What scares me?
Oh,
Spiders.
was that Sienna in the background?
Yeah, she's down. She's down. She might make a guest appearance here in a minute to say hello.
Yeah.
What scares me? You know what? This reminds me of a quote by Marianne Williamson. So she's one of the books, A Course in Miracles. And one of her quotes, and I love it, is like, our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond our own belief and recognition. And I suppose the more work I do on myself, the more awareness and resonance I have over the fact that I am a conscious creator, and that I have the ability to choose in every given moment my version of reality. And what scares me is knowing I have the power to do so. Because yeah, I suppose, really, like, you know, I suppose for me anyway, definitely, I probably lived a lot of my life believing that I didn't have power and I didn't have choice. And the more evolution and growth in my awareness that I have, and knowing that actually we're amazingly powerful beings, with infinite power at our fingertips, should we choose it at any given moment. At times, I wouldn't maybe say scares me, but at times when I think about it too much, and I should just be with it and be with the power, can become a little overwhelming. um, Also, paradoxically, I also see that as a massive gift at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
What scares you?
Oh, what doesn't? Oh, yeah. You know, I actually, well, one thing is my family. Um, you know, like losing them. That's always, especially with my father. For some reason, I have this connection with him, and it's very polarizing. And there's so much love there, but there's a lot of pain as well. And, um, yeah, like I just want him to to see the gift that life really is. Um, I hope he gets there, and I hope that he actually lives to see that. Yeah, because he deserves to. Uh,
That's a challenging one with parents, really, isn't it? It's definitely something a journey I went through even with my own father. Um, he has a lot of health conditions, but his story and his belief is being like a sick man, and yeah, like I need to allow him the space um to play out his process and just be there in a supportive capacity and best I know how. But it definitely can be challenging to look on and see someone you love so much in that cycle, but each in their own process, I feel up.
yeah. What keeps you up at night? Sienna.
What?
maybe a few months ago. She must have.
Honestly, no. Like I'm so blessed. My daughter is a great sleeper. She does not keep me up at night. Nothing keeps me up at night. Um, yeah, not. I couldn't say. Nothing comes to mind anyway.
You're astral traveling somewhere, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe. No, genuinely, like I'm a great sleeper. Very like there's been very few instances in my life where I have been unable to sleep. Um, I'm a great sleeper, thankfully.
What is one thing that you would tell yourself as a 20-year-old if you could go back in time with what you know now?
Trust, trust that it will all work out exactly as it's meant to in each moment. Trust that everything is happening for you and not to you. Trust in yourself, trust in your decisions, trust in that inner knowing, and just go with it. Mm.
What's some advice that you could give to someone who's gone through uh, something similar to yourself?
Something similar to myself.
Yeah,
Um,
been through the same journey as you have.
Same journey as me. Let's say similar journey. We all go, even if we went through the exact same things, we experience them differently. Um, um, suppose like one thing I pull out a lot in my coaching sessions is the scale of consciousness and the polar opposite sides of the positive and the negative, or the love and the fear based feeling or emotions. And like I suppose if I'm talking to someone who's had a similar experience, they come from a very much place of uh, emotion and feeling perspective. Um, so definitely knowing at any given point where you are residing on that scale, is it in a fear-based or more loving-based consciousness? Um, and I suppose while becoming aware of that consciousness and accepting that that's where you're at, and accepting that that is your starting point and it's perfectly okay. It's not wrong to feel negative emotion. Um, and I think one of my favorite quotes, and I repeat this a lot in my sessions, is from Einstein, who is fantastic that he did this kind of work because it brings science into the whole spiritual element as well. That a challenge, I know he says a problem, but I like to use the word challenge, can never be resolved from the same level of consciousness in which it was created. So if you are feeling depressed, low, hopeless, despair, anxiety, guilt, shame, hate, jealousy, whatever, like if you are feeling any of those emotions and you are responding to that state of being from another fear-based perspective, fear-based consciousness, so you're judging yourself in that place, you're not accepting yourself, you're criticizing yourself, you'll stay rooted in that place. So even accepting that you're there will start to disrupt that energy, and picking your most loving love-based emotion or consciousness, so i.e., hope, becoming a little bit more hopeful, or adding a little bit more love into your life by maybe love can being loving towards yourself can, it doesn't have to be in a conceited capacity. Like, in being loving towards yourself could be eating a nourishing breakfast, it could be going for a walk out in nature, and to decipher what are the things that lift your spirits or lift your energy that little bit, and to consciously choose to do a little bit of this and integrate a little bit of this into your life daily. So I remember for me, it was very much, I was just so demotivated to even take action, but really, like, I suppose coming to a place of acceptance that you have full responsibility over how you show up differently, and taking that responsibility and taking the small little progressive steps forward in the right direction ultimately will end up with a different reality for you before long.
What 3 books have influenced you most and why?
Ooh. What 3 books have influenced me most? I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I love Oprah Winfrey's audiobook that she did, The Wisdom of Sundays. So she speaks to all the biggest kind of thought leaders and spiritual influencers, and kind of wellness advocates that she's had on her show throughout her career. So she speaks to, like, Deepak Chopra, Eckhart Tolle, and I suppose, like, because I resonate with that kind of energy and teachings, that kind of book would really have influenced me insofar as knowing that I'm resonating with these people who are seen and held in that high esteem, and that I connect with what they're saying. So it's really reaffirming and reflecting and mirroring back to me that I am right where I'm meant to be on my path. What other book? So there was another book called The War of Art, and this was a book that I had to do as part of my coaching diploma, and it was about how kind of resistance shows up in your life. So when we go to create change in any aspect of our life or being, inevitably fear can arise from that. So that book was all about showing how different forms of it can show up and manifest in our lives differently. So for me, that was very much I was able to decipher when I was making kind of conscious change for myself. Oh, that's interesting that I'm doing that now. That actually is a form of resistance. And now that I'm aware of that, I can make a choice to either let that influence or impact my decision to take progressive steps forward. So that's been really, really good one. And I'm reading a book at the moment. I'm halfway through it. So I can't say if it's been one of the biggest influences yet, but I'm really enjoying it. And it's called Stealing Fire. And it's about altered states of consciousness.
Wow.
So it's a really, really, really interesting one, Philip. I think you'd like it. So the authors do kind of research across different groups, people that get into this kind of flow state, or they access a flow state. So, like, Tibetan monks, the Marines, like people who take psychedelics, and they just monitor the brain activity and the brain chemistry that goes on, and what actually happens there being in those states, and how they kind of access them through different ways of doing things. So I'm not quite finished that yet, but I can touch back in and let you know how that's going. But I'm finding it really interesting. I suppose it's just where I'm at the moment, and that's just really resonating with me.
What is true strength?
What is true strength? For me, I suppose I see strength very similar to bravery, very similar to courage, and I used to have this belief about, you know, people who were strong or brave or courageous, you know, acting, you know, in pure resonance and no fear being present. And, you know, in my lifetime, I suppose I've really learned that, like, you know, being brave or strong or courageous doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't any fear present. It just means that you take action forward in spite of it being present. Yeah.
Who is your biggest spiritual inspiration?
Ooh, you're putting me on the spot here now. My biggest spiritual inspiration. I have a few, and they can change, depending on me and where I'm at in my process. Like, I suppose maybe one of the fundamental ones that I always come back to in the core of the teachings would be Deepak Chopra. I love how simple and grounded the message is. I have to say, like, I love your work, Philip. I really resonate. I think you're very heart-centered, which I would be also. So I love listening to you, and it, like, even if I wasn't listening to the words, I can feel the energy of it, and that very much for me is important because I'm such a sentient being, and I feel energy. That's important that the messages of the teachers resonate with me kind of in my heart center. I love Brandon's work. He's really, like, been a very big key game changer in my life and in the way I show up for myself in my life and for others. Yeah, them for the moment. And you know what, like, I suppose my daughter, you know, she is the embodiment of what it is to be whole, to be one. So she definitely would be a bit of a spiritual teacher for me. It's funny, you know, when we're growing, when we have this perception of parents and children, and, like, I actually do believe they have a lot more to offer and teach us when we become their parents than we do them. Like, if we could collaborate both of our wisdoms together and share them out and embody them together, would be perfect.
What is your greatest challenge?
What is my greatest challenge? Being the embodiment of my teachings at all times.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah. It's hard, isn't
it? Ever developing one, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I find I do all of these things, but yeah, it's just sometimes it's so hard to actually. I'm good at telling people, but then when things come into my life, yeah, it challenges me to.
Totally. And, you know, that's just honoring the human aspect of our being. Like, you know, it's like, remember when Brandon said, do you ever find yourself giving this really good advice to someone and you're going, wow, that's a really good advice, I should take that on board myself. You know, but, you know, look, the intention of greatness is always there, and we can only honor it as best we can in any given situation, and accept that we are human, and we are doing our best in each moment as best we can. Yeah. And everything is right for us at each time, even if it's the challenge and being the embodiment and stuff, you know. Just more stuff for us to integrate, or more fear-based beliefs to let go of.
Yeah, it never ends.
Fun.
Okay, last question. If today was your last day on Earth,
Mhm.
what would you do? How would you live it?
Wow. um, I would write. I would spend time with my family. Um, I would, yeah, I would write. I would write a lot for my daughter. I think I would definitely like put together the wisdom I would like her to have. Um, yeah, I would literally just spend time being with my family. Would there be anything else? No, like I mean, I don't think there is. I mean, I'm thinking this is too simple. I'm not really sure would there be anything outside of what I regularly do, bar just ensuring that I gather all of my family and friends and ensure that they know that how much I love them and how much I appreciate them. Mm,
Well, that's beautiful.
thank you.
And yeah, thank you for sharing your life, yeah, with me and with the first listeners of this podcast.
Thank
Um,
you very much for having me on. I appreciate it. It's lovely catching up.
yeah.
And
Um,
I wish you every success with your journey of helping to expand human consciousness. Um, I believe you are the new age Dalai Lama.
I don't, I'm
That's what I call you. That's what I call you at home.
got the bald head for it. So
Modern day sage, isn't it? So
yeah. Um, yeah. I've got. I'm really out of words. You know how I feel. Uh, yeah.
I hear you.
Amazing person.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Um, I would like to ask you, if there's what your next event is and what you're planning, um, and how people can get in contact with you and see what's coming up.
Yeah, so I am having my first holistic wellness event. It's on the 4th of November. It's on in Cork City in a hotel called the River Lee. It's a charity event in aid of Pieta House, the suicide prevention charity that assisted me so very well on my recovery. So my intention and ethos behind this event is to bring together or align um, different panelists, so a female panel, a male panel, and a holistic panel to share their journeys and create a space of vulnerability for people to realize that their journeys aren't isolated ones, and through the human experience we all experience our challenges, and we all experience setbacks, and I suppose the online world has created such a, what's the word I'm looking for, not pretentious, but I suppose an illusion of the perfect life that doesn't really exist. And it's to break down those social barriers and just to create a space of resonance for people to know that it's okay for things not to be perfect, and it's okay to have struggle, and to share some ideas on how people have overcome these struggles through different mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual capacities. So there will be a lot of stories shared, a lot of information, a lot of advice and help and support and connection. Really, connection is probably my main theme of the day, is to connect kind of people together socially, and to create a lovely heart-centered space of understanding for people. So you can check out I'm probably most active on my Instagram page, which is Cliona O'Hanlon Wellness. I'm also on Facebook. I prefer to use one medium. I know I probably should be using more, but Instagram is where it resonates with me most. So if you want to check out that event, it's called Align Body, Mind, Spirit. And there will be loads of lovely raffles and everything on day, and it's in aid of such a great charity.
Yeah. I'll put the link underneath the video as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Cliona.
You're so welcome.
I love you a lot, and
I love you too, Philip.
yeah, and yeah, for all of the viewers out there, yeah, if you could, if you really like this video, please share it with as many people as you can, because it's all about just raising awareness and helping people to really find, heal themselves and find out who they really are, and may see the gift that life is. Would that be right in saying that? Yeah.
Absolutely. Seeing the gift like that life is, if you choose that, we all have free will and choice. It can be heaven or it can be hell. It depends on what way you want to perceive it.
Well, let's yes, defend this.
Bye.